Hi there. I am going to talk about work and the idea that it is an addiction somehow. I don't want to show my face because I think I'm very ugly and I'm embarrassed about my ugliness, and so I will show you instead the beautiful views around me. If I can manage to get this thing. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I think it's stuck on this setting. Okay, I just wasted about 20 seconds. I could restart the video, but I don't think I will. Okay, well, I guess you just have my face to look at for a bit. I'm here at the laundromat in the back. Hopefully, they don't kick me out. I've got myself some drinks here, some coffee, which is probably an addiction, some sandia with some sugar in it, probably also an addiction. It's not alcohol though, so at least you know, at least I have that going for me. The fact that it's not alcohol, and I got this brand new popping boba drink. It's a Taiwan classic apparently, and it tastes awful. Maybe I'm changing. Maybe I'm growing because I'm noticing the disgusting flavors and artificially flavored and otherwise flavored foods. Anyway, how is work an addiction? How the heck is work an addiction? That's my question. What the? How the is work an addiction? I heard AJ say that work is an addiction, and I'm like, my reaction was, huh? I was like, what? I said to myself, and perhaps out loud, what? And that's how I really feel. But no, like, what is it? How is work an addiction? You're supposed to work. You have to work. I mean, he even says that work is like part of part of what you do, like part of who we are. Like we're here to work, but it's not supposed to be like a slog. It's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to bring us down. It's not supposed to be an unenjoyable thing. Like everything is supposed to be an enjoyable thing. So why isn't it? And furthermore, why, how, or I should say, yeah, let me start with the why. Why is it an addiction? Something that you do to avoid your fear. How is it an addiction? What is it about taking those actions, taking the action to work that is like, yeah, addictive? Maybe I'm asking the same thing there. Anyway, right? That's the main question. Those are the main questions. And there's a bit of the outside. Now I want to switch to myself. I think I look better like this because you don't see my man boobs and you don't see the mass of my massive chin there. But I don't want to hold my camera phone just like this all the time. So I'm going to do this. So you're going to have to deal with my mask for a little bit. Fortunately, you can not look at me and just listen. That's an option. But anyway, yes, I did just pull a booger. In case you're wondering what I was doing, in case you didn't look away already, I was just like, there was a bit of a dry booger there, and I just kind of pulled it off. I don't know if you're supposed to do that publicly, like when other people are around or you're making a video, but I guess I just don't care enough at this present moment. How is it in addiction? That really boggles my mind. That really put me in a pinch. That really was a kerfuffle for me. Like something that I thought about a lot, prayed about, and asked that question. You know, how work? I'm supposed to work. I have to work. I have to work because to some degree I have to make money because I have to take care of myself. If I don't have money, how am I going to survive? I suppose I can eat grass. I can eat that. I can, you know, I've heard people do it. I don't think it's very digestible. There's this bird that eats leaves. Leaves don't have a lot of carbohydrates or like nutrition or something. But apparently, you have to eat a lot of leaves in order to get the nutrition you need. I think that's why like cows and giraffes and other animals that eat like leafy stuff, they eat a lot of it because they need to have a lot in order to get the nutrition. So if I did eat grass, that would probably not be enjoyable. Also, people would look at me strange. I might be ostracized. But also, I wouldn't have a place to live because usually you have to have money in order to have a place to live. Like literally. Like I don't think people would necessarily allow you to live, to sleep wherever you wanted to sleep. Like there's public places, right? And there are private places. A private place is like some land and a house that you own. Excuse me, could you excuse me. Can you please hush for a moment? Thank you. Birds these days, am I right? Um, yeah, like you have some land, you have. I just did it again. I'm not going to show it to you. Maybe I will. I don't care. You can't. There it is. There it is. That's that's the kind of revolutionary. That's paint. That's not even it. That's the kind of. That's what we do here on my channel. We show boogers. All right. There's nothing off the table over here. Okay. Maybe one day I'll strip naked. I don't know. A woman showed her breasts on YouTube once. I watched it for scientific purposes, for research, because I wanted to see how the hell a woman could show her breasts on YouTube and not be allowed. And also because I wanted to look at her breasts, but I don't know which one I wanted. Probably the fact that I wanted to like project at her. But anyway, nothing's off the table on my channel. Excuse me. Let me not divert from my point longer. So I know this is a digression, but it's a digression I want to digress on. All right. So if you let's say you have your own land and you own that land, you have what's called a title to the land. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's yours, but effectively it's you manage it. Effectively, it's something that you. I think ultimately the government, perhaps even the Commonwealth, whoever rules that, owns it. So you don't even own your property, but it is effectively private property, and it is something that you manage and have an amount of control over. You are allowed that control, and you know, one could say that not even the Commonwealth or no human being owns anything really, because we're all renting this space in a way. Maybe not renting, but we're gifted. You know, collectively, we're gifted with the land and the resources on that land in order to, I don't know, live. I guess. But there's private property, and then there's public property, and the public property is like a park, you know, a courthouse, um, a government facility. I believe national parks are public. But even those properties have rules and regulations and dictates and mandates and probates and bandates and grambates and flambates and you know. There are rules associated even with public places. Like, you couldn't just build a house on a national park. And you can't just sleep in a park, just a regular town, village, or city park necessarily. A lot of parks are closed after dark. Yeah, when the sun goes down, they're closed. So, where do you live? If you don't have money, where do you live? I don't know. I thought I might go down to the sheriff's office one day and knock on their door or window or ring their bell and say, hey, where is it okay for me to sleep? But I thought if I were to do that, I might be somewhat embarrassed by their response because I would think that they wouldn't want to tell me. Because a lot of times you ask simple questions of people, even people who are in charge, people who are meant to serve you, and a lot of times they get upset and they think you're wasting their time or some such thing. So I never did that, but perhaps I should, or maybe I should just do my research and find out. But I honestly don't know how you sleep or live anywhere when you don't have money. You could check yourself into a homeless shelter. I've done that several times, maybe 4 times at this point, 5 times actually. So I know what that's about, and I don't feel good about it. I feel like I'm taking, and I've offered once to pay for my stay, and they rejected me. They said don't do that. That's not. I asked them how much does it cost to support me for a month. They gave me an estimate, and then I asked them again to be sure, and they said we're not going to answer that question. So there you go. People don't want to answer certain questions; they don't like it. So there's a horse back there. That's cool. I saw their feet. I can't see them. I was wondering who was back there. I thought it was a person listening to me, upset with what I was saying, but it's just a horse. They could, I mean, they could be upset with what I'm saying too. I don't know with their mind. But anyway, where do you live without money? How do you survive without money? Isn't it unethical to check yourself into a homeless shelter? And I mean, not even homeless shelters will allow you to pay for your stay. I suppose you could donate. I think the guy said it was like $900 a month, which was more than if I found my own place. So it's like, might as well find my own place. So I did find my own place, and now I work. I work for money. Well, therein lies the rub, ladies and gentlemen. That apparently is what distinguishes addictive work from non addictive work, namely working for money. So you could conceivably work without an expectation of return. You could have a an understanding with someone that you're working with where you tell them, I will do this, and you may donate money to me. But if you choose not to donate money to me, I still will do this thing because this is the thing that I want to do. But it will not affect you or my doing of this thing. I want to do this thing, you know. Let's say I want to take someone's tree off their property. I want to cut down their tree because I know it's good for the environment. Like there's an invasive species called Siberian elm here in Taos, Nuevo Mexico. I wonder if that's one. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's called the Siberian elm, and those are really bad trees. And one governor thought it was a great idea to bring them to New Mexico once. It turns out that he was wrong. But anyway, let's say I went to someone's property and I said, I want to cut down that tree. Would you allow me to do that? And then they said, oh, yeah, I'd be happy for you to do that, but I can't pay you. then I would say if I didn't want to work for money, if I worked with no expectation of return, I would say, you know what? I will do that whether you pay me or not. That's what I would say. And that's when it's not an addiction. So that's one way in which where you would know that you're working addictively. But there's more to this thing of addiction, of work being an addiction. And I guess for the rest of the video, that's what I want to talk about. What I've discovered about how work is in fact an addiction, especially if it's for money. Like the thing is, I can give the gift of my time and my tools and my energy and cut down someone's Siberian elm in their yard. And I could do that without any expectation of return. And I can still have addictions involved in the process. So just by the fact of that I'm volunteering my time, that I'm doing something without the expectation of return, just that fact alone doesn't necessarily mean there are no addictions in the process. But doesn't necessarily mean I shouldn't do that thing. It's still better by virtue of the fact that it's not, with the expectation of return. But like here's a clearer example. Like let's say I'm a prostitute. Now, not a lot of people would want to hire me. I don't think, because as I mentioned before, I'm fairly ugly, or so I believe. Um, but say there was a market for me, you know, um, and I charged people. That would be addictive because I charged them for my service. But let's say I didn't charge them. Well, the fact that I'm like I do a solid for someone. Like someone comes up to me and they say, "Hey, I want to have sex with you, and I'm going to pay you money." And I said, "You know what? This one's on me, buddy. It's free. All right. So let's say I did that for somebody. That might be kind of okay, but the fact that I'm sleeping with them to make them feel better or to assuage, some feeling inside of them that they don't want to deal with, um, the fact that I'm just helping them to avoid some loneliness or some other thing by sleeping with them is very addictive. I'm feeding an addiction of theirs and I'm getting something from them by feeding their addiction. Maybe they give me some kind of validation. Maybe they see me. I don't know. They give something to me that's not monetary, but still, feeding something that I want, a temporary feeling that I'm chasing after. So that would be an example, a more clear example of working addictively, even though I'm not asking for anything, any money. So that's a clear example, but what about the not so clear examples? Like at this point, I don't believe that working, like just giving the gift of my time, energy, and resources will um, I don't believe that just work. Like if I didn't work for money, I feel like Porky Pig right now. If I didn't work for money, but I did something that was valuable and good, like cutting down people's Siberian elms, um, I don't believe that I would be able to live. And AJ says that if you do the loving thing, God supports you, and God knows what you need, and God wants to support. your loving lifestyle, he doesn't necessarily want to support you in your addictions. So if you're, you know, spending money that you receive from work that you do, or just like you're getting donated money because people want to give you money because they like what you're doing and they want it to continue, or they just like you and they want to give you money, and you're spending a fair bit of that money on addictions. God doesn't want to support you in that, I don't think. But ostensibly, God does want to have your basic needs met, you know, shelter, clothes, food, water. So, AJ, who claims to be Jesus, says that God cares about you and wants you to have those things. And even in the Bible, if AJ is Jesus, the Jesus in the Bible said the same thing. There's that quote about the sparrows of the field and the sparrows of the air, or like the birds of the air and the flowers of the field, how well they're taken care of. And if they're so well taken care of and they get everything that they need, why would God not give us, his children, everything that we want? uh, every time I think about that, I get emotional. But even though I get emotional, I don't believe it. I actually don't really believe that. I don't believe it enough to do it. I've had so many opportunities. I've heard that so many times in my life. I've considered that so many times in my life, and I still won't. I don't have the faith, the confidence to go out and work not for money, to work, yeah, by donation or whatever. I don't have that faith. I know I do not have that faith. And in fact, I'm a little peeved and a little pissed off that's expected of me. That I'm supposed to, you know, believe that I can do that. But anyway, um, it's weird. I just like had some emotions and I just like went somewhere, and I feel like I'm in a different spot now than what I was before. Even though I didn't really feel those emotions, I just noticed I had them, noticed them come up, and it's hard for me to get back on track with what I want to say. It's funny, but the purpose of this video is just to share how I've seen how work is an addiction. But like what I've seen after asking that question is how I'll get up every morning and I'll go to work and I'll do pretty much what's asked of me, what's expected of me. And, you know, a lot of times I have trouble with what I'm doing, with the work that I'm doing, and I don't enjoy it. And I know that there's this possibility of another way where I, you know, cut down people with Siberian elms or make movies or whatever the heck. There's this other way, and I still don't go after it. I don't believe, as I've said, that is a viable way to live. I just don't. And so why am I doing this? Why I hate doing it. I hate going to work. I hate when I'm there. I hate that like I work at this pizza place where, I'm feeding people a lot of junk food, meat, dairy, salty stuff, sweet stuff that's not good for them, and they eat a lot of it. And sometimes I'm expected to meet people's emotional addictions, make them feel good about themselves, like my coworkers, my bosses. I can see a lot of times when they want me to meet their addictions, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm too afraid of them getting mad at me, so I'll just try to avoid that, and I'll just meet their addiction. And sometimes I don't meet their addiction, and it's difficult because a lot of times they will get mad at me. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it works out, but I don't really enjoy the work that I do. Most work that I do for money, I don't enjoy, and I know I've heard there's another way. I don't believe that I can survive that way. But I ask myself, why do I go when I know it's wrong? When I've heard like there's a better way to do it, why do I keep going day after day after day? And I've come to realize that there must be something about it that I want. I so strongly don't believe that working for myself, working by donation without the expectation of return, I so don't believe that that's a viable way to live. I believe that this work where I feed people pizza is a viable way to live. I believe that working at a maintenance job is a viable way to live. Working for pay is a viable way to live. Why? And the answers that I've come up with are kind of interesting. Um, I like staying busy. I like staying busy. I like doing things with my hands, doing this, doing that, going over here, doing this work, going over here, doing that task. And I spend my day at my job, and then I finish my job, and I feel kind of good once I'm all done, and I get to go home, and then I feel like I've accomplished something that day. A lot of times when I call in sick, a lot of times I'm not really physically sick. I'm usually like emotionally sick or, mentally sick. And by the way, I used to be pretty judgmental about people that took like a mental health day, and I'm less judgmental about that. I kind of get it now. Like I kind of think that it's okay to do that. It's my time anyway. If someone wants to take a day off, you know, why not let them? I'm too scared to say a lot of times that, oh, it's because want I don't want to work today. I'm too scared to say that. I'll just say that I'm sick, but I'm not really like physically sick. I can work. I just really don't want to. But I will take a day off just because my mental, really my spiritual is off. So, and on those days I feel extremely guilty. Extremely guilty. For one thing, because I lied. Instead of saying I just didn't want to work today, I said I'm physically sick. So I lied, so I feel guilty about that. For another thing, I just feel like I'm a nobody. I feel like I'm a piece of shit. I feel like I could have worked today and I didn't want to work, and I didn't want to work because I'm fucking lazy. Because I'm a lazy motherfucker. That's what I think, and that is painful. That's difficult to hear, even though I'm doing it to myself, or maybe spirits are telling me that too. There's something inside of me that's attracting me to say that to myself or hear that from spirits. So, but that feeling like you're a piece of shit, feeling like you're nothing, feeling like you're not worthy, it's really a worth feeling. That is definitely a feeling that I do not want to feel. I definitely don't want to feel that feeling. And what I find is if I work at a job day after day after day, even though I hate it, at least I don't have to feel that feeling. At least I don't have to feel the feeling of utter unworthiness, you know? So that right there is an addiction. It's obvious, it's so clear. It's just like if I don't go to work, then I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I'm a piece of shit. I could stay home. I could quit. Or I could say, you know what? I need 2 weeks. Theo, why do you need 2 weeks off? Because, I just feel like I gotta feel some of my feelings about working, about how much of a piece of shit I feel, And I feel like I need to do that outside of work. If I did it at work, you'd probably have a hard time with me. So here, I need 2 weeks off to just feel those feelings. You know, they're gonna cut me off mid sentence. They're not gonna listen to my whole shebang. They're gonna say, "Fuck that, Theo, you're fired." I believe they'll say that. They might not say that, but I'm afraid that they'll say that. And so, I won't do that. I just want to work. I don't want to take the risk that they might that I might be penniless, that I might not work things out, that I might not feel my feelings and remove those feelings, and then my attraction will change. I'm too afraid of that, of the idea, just taking a chance on myself, just giving myself the time to try to work things out. I'm way too afraid, and I don't believe that's fear right there. Obviously that's me. There's an example of an addiction right there. I'm way too afraid to do something, and so I do the other thing to avoid the fear. So right there, clear addiction. I work because I don't want to. I don't want. I'll tell you. I'll tell you one thing that kind of puts it into perspective. So my pizza job. One time they had me do something I didn't want to do. I don't think I need to be specific about it, but maybe it's going to help if I was specific. Basically, they were saying, like, you've been doing the three trashes that you're obligated to do every shift. Like, take out these three containers of trash, and even though you've been doing that, we're going to add we're going to have you do all these trashes as well. Now, normally the wait staff, and I'm not the wait staff. I'm a food prep. But normally the wait staff does these other trashes, and now they want me to do it. And they said, you don't. It's really the wait staff's responsibility, but they're not doing it, so we want you to do it. And I said, I don't want to do that. If it's their responsibility, then they ought to do it. I don't want to, you know, make them. I don't want to become responsible suddenly for someone else's job. And they said, well, here at this restaurant, you're expected to do really all kinds of things. And I thought about it. I said, no, I don't want to do that. And they said, okay, well, you have to do it. We're saying that you have to do it. And I thought about it, and I didn't say anything. I thought about it some more. I went off, doing some other things. And then I came back and I said, you know what? I quit. I quit. I'm quitting. And the reason why I quit was because I knew I was not, that was just a bridge too far for me. It's my choice whether I want to work here. It's my choice whether I want to do what is asked of me. And for me, that was too far. And so I knew I couldn't work there anymore. And so I went to my one boss that told me to do that thing. And she said, wait, hold on. Let's go to the other boss, which is her husband. And she said, and she took me over to him. And I said, let's see what happens. I'm ready to quit. Let's see what he has to say. And he heard what the situation was. He heard that I didn't want to do this extra thing. And he said, what's wrong with you? You don't want to be responsible? And I said, well, it's not really that, but I don't want to do this extra thing, basically. I don't feel like that's something that I have to do. And he was basically condescending to me. He was like, you have no idea what like hard work is. You don't know what hard work is. Have you ever worked in an oil field? And this man, he has worked in an oil field, which is hard work. I've heard some stories about working in an oil field. It's hard work, long hours, fair bit of money, but a lot of hard work. It's something I don't see myself doing. I don't think I could hack it. So he said, have you ever worked in an oil field? And I was like, I didn't know what to say to that. And he was basically implying, like, I don't know what hard work is. And I'm so, like, irresponsible. I'm so, you know, selfish or something to not want to do this one other thing. And I said, well, like, I understand that, but I'm not going to do it. And he said, what is it that we want you to do? what is it that she's asking you to do? And I said, this extra thing with the trash. It's what the wait staff are supposed to do. And he said, well, you don't have to, just be sensible. If there's a lot of trash, you could put it in, but you don't have to do it. And that was against what the lady said previously. Like, she said I did have to do it. But, basically he was settling the situation. And he said, well, you don't have to necessarily, it's not now your responsibility from here forward. Just be sensible about it. You can kind of do it if you think it's a good idea, or you can not. And that was my issue with it, was I didn't want to be made to do that. Now that it's, I didn't want that to be a new expectation, a new task, a new responsibility that I was saddled with. And so the fact that he kind of let me not do it was enough for me to stay in the job, and I stayed in the job. I'm still at that job. But part of the whole deal, part of the whole shebang, the reason I'm bringing it up is that he was basically condescending to me. And I know a lot of people will say, "Well, Theo, you're a jerk. You're supposed to do what you're asked to do at work." And I get that. I know that. But I also have the choice to quit a job that I don't want, where I don't want to do certain tasks. That's also a choice. It is a choice to work or not work. I know that. I make the choice to work. And it was interesting. Like, on the one hand, he kind of went against what that lady, what the other co-owner said that I had to do, and that was enough for me to kind of stay there. But also, he was condescending. And that's another thing that I want to avoid. It's kind of a similar thing to the unworthy feeling that I talked about earlier. But it's basically that I don't want to feel like, especially as a man, I have certain beliefs about what I'm supposed to do as a man. What makes me a good man, what makes me an acceptable man, what makes me not a lazy, low down, no good piece of shit by society's standards. If someone came up to me on the street and said, you kind of smell a little bit, your clothes aren't in good shape, and you're carrying your life around with you in a shopping cart, and I said, and it looks like you're not working. Are you working? If they asked me that, I'd say, no, I'm not working. I don't want to work. And then I wouldn't necessarily beg, because I don't like begging. But if they said, you really should work, you should be working. You shouldn't be out here. You're better than that. Even if they came off that way, and they kind of like, it sounds like they're being nice, but really they're being condescending too. Um, and I know it sounds like I'm just complaining here, but I don't think I am. Like, I think we're all so freaking afraid, especially men, to a greater degree men, but I'm sure women definitely feel it too. Like, you're supposed to be working, you're supposed to be at a job, you're supposed to be making money. And a lot of people feel that way. And if you're not, some people love nurturing destitute people. And I think that's why there's homeless people have such a long life expectancy. Because I think in other periods of time, they didn't have as much, life expectancy as they currently do. But there's a lot of people that want to nurture destitute people. And but if you're not one of those people, and you want to, like, condescend and belittle and judge a destitute person, you're the type of person that I want to avoid. That projection of judgment is exactly what I want to avoid. And so I'll work just to avoid that. Just so that you don't condescend to me. Just so that you don't make me feel like the piece of shit that I actually feel inside. You know? And there, again, there's another example of how it's an addiction. Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe I'm saying the same thing. If anything, they're probably related, because it's all related to worth. But, like, you going out there, if I were to quit my jobs tomorrow, go out there and start cutting Siberian elms, maybe over time I'd actually find success. Maybe I would, you know. But I know I have that opportunity every single day, and I know every single day I I don't take that opportunity, and so logically that means that I really don't believe that I can live that way. I really don't believe that that God will support me. And I get confused with this whole thing because if you do expect that God is going to support you, isn't that an expectation? I don't get it. Like, it's one of the it's one of the things that I'm really angry about. Like, I'm not supposed to expect that I'll be supported, but I'm supposed to somehow know that God will support me. That He's supposed to believe, supposed to know, supposed to what? Have some faith, a little bit of faith that God loves me and God wants to help me and God wants to take care of me. How does that work? Like you're not supposed to expect it, but you're supposed to believe that it's true. I don't get it. I don't freaking get it. I don't know how to feel right about it. Maybe one day I'll get over it. I don't know. Right now, I don't. I don't see myself getting over it, getting through it, or feeling the emotions I need to feel. I mean, I'm feeling some of them now, but I'm not really releasing it. I don't think. But um, yeah, it's really interesting stuff to me. This is all really interesting. But there's a bit more I want to say, so I'm just gonna move past that kind of emotional bit there and say a little bit more. So yesterday, I've been thinking about this one thing that AJ said about how if you're somewhere and you're working and you're working with people at a job and there's a task to be done or tasks to be done or a general objective or you're working towards an end. You know, at my maintenance job, I'm there to maintain the facilities. At my pizza job, I'm there to prepare food and serve the food, you know, help serve it and, you know, maintain the facilities too. Um, and he said if you're working at a place, you know, with an objective, which every place you work will have an objective, then you shouldn't be worried or you shouldn't be like spending a lot of your time just talking to people. In fact, I think he said like don't really spend any of your time talking to people. Maybe on your lunch break, maybe if you have like certain allotted breaks, but really it's not like a social gathering. And if I'm misquoting him here, like I apologize, but that's kind of like my gist. Like he even said this, went so far as to say like, if you want to hang out with someone, if you want to be social with someone, my feelings are invite them to your house for a meal or a get together and talk there. That's your time. That's your free time. That's their free time. You're not at the workplace expected to do something and get and pursue certain objectives. You know, if you're expected to be somewhere for 10 hours working in pursuit of certain objectives, then you should spend those 10 hours working in pursuit of those objectives. And you shouldn't be spending really any of that time socializing. And that was a really interesting thing because like I have a lot of problems with people when I start socializing with them, but I do feel like you should have some kind of rapport and you should, you know, get to know people when you have that opportunity to because why not? Because we're all here to get to know each other and be familiar with each other and whatnot. And and I thought to some degree, not completely, but to some degree, it's good to do that at work. But now, after hearing what he said, I've been like experimenting with not doing that, experimenting with just yeah, just not really saying anything about myself at work. Sometimes people ask me what I remember one time. A lot of times, I'll someone asks me how I'm doing, and I know they don't care, and I'll. One time, I said to my coworker, "I know you don't care," and he admitted to me, he was like, "Yeah, no, I don't care." And I'm like, "So why do you ask?" And he says, "Well, it's common courtesy." And he gets mad at me. I'm not laughing at him. I'm not mad at him. It was just a funny situation. Like I'm like, well, don't you see that if you don't genuinely want to know that it's not really courteous to ask? Like when I ask a question, I try to, you know, mean what I'm saying. I try to actually have a desire to know what the answer to my question is. Ask the question, and then hopefully I'll get an answer. But a lot of people ask how you're doing. Just like you said, a lot of people just ask because it's common courtesy. They don't really want to know, but they'll just ask because it's what everyone else does, and it's what you do if you're supposed to be a nice person. So I said, well, don't you see? Yeah, and he didn't really see it, but that's fine. But like, I've been asking people questions about their personal lives a lot less after hearing what AJ said about socializing at work, and I've been a lot less interested in offering anything about my personal life. I know most people that I work with. What I found in my life, like, you have work friends and you have like friends outside of work, and a lot of times your work friends are not your actual friends. They're just associated with you insofar as like them wanting to have a good experience with someone that they're working with. I've tried many times to keep up relations and have you know um, uh, interactions with people outside of work, and sometimes there's a little bit that goes on. There's a few outside of work experiences, and that's it. It doesn't go very far. People are not interested in me, and that's something that's been very difficult to realize and to notice. People don't really care about me. They might pretend that they do, and that's in a lot of ways something that they're doing in order to look a certain way, or for common courtesy. Same thing, really. They want to look good at work, and so they'll pretend that they care, and they might even hang out with you a few times outside of work because they want to pretend that they care, but they're not there for the long haul. And I'm sure there are a lot of things that I am expecting that are irritating to people, a lot of things that I want, and so I'm sure that's part of it, and I haven't figured out all that that's about yet, but I feel like I'm just kind of running on. I feel like those are a series of run-on sentences, but it makes sense to me. Anyway, that's been interesting to see. Like really, work is not the place to socialize. If you have some free time, like I said, some breaks, spend some time socializing. You're not supposed to work for that allotted period of time. But if you have time outside of work where someone invites you to their home, or you invite them to your home, or someone invites you to their home, and you invite someone else to your home, and you're spending time with someone outside of work, that's fine. You do whatever you want, right? But you don't really offer or ask too much about somebody when you're at work, when you're supposed to be working. It's been an interesting thing to try not doing that for a bit, and I've gotten better. Actually, I've gotten better to where I just don't feel like I need to offer much about myself, about my personal life, or ask much about someone else's personal life. And and then I see this thing. This thing happened yesterday. So someone was sick 2 days ago, and then yesterday he comes to work, and my boss. I'm here. I'm in the next room. I'm listening to them. My boss says, "Hey, how's it going?" And the guy says, he starts telling my boss why he was sick. Now, in fairness, my boss did ask him how it was going, and it was kind of an ambiguous question. Maybe he was just trying to be nice. Who knows? Or maybe he did really care. I don't know. Who knows? But this, my coworker starts, not my boss, my coworker starts telling him everything that went wrong and why he's so upset, and how he had some nerve problem. And he tells my boss, all about his nerve problem. And even at one point, and he says a lot about his nerve problem. And I'm going, did the boss specifically ask him all these things about his nerve problem? At a certain point, if I was the boss, I'd be like, I don't want to hear any more about your nerve problem. After someone telling me, more than 20 seconds of stuff related to their nerve problem, I'd probably say, you know what, I'm not really interested in hearing any more. So let's get to work here, and say something like that. A lot of people would say that sounds awful, but I'm kind of going off of what AJ is saying. Like, maybe it's not a good idea to socialize at work. And really, what I'm saying is that I realized that my coworker was engaging in an addiction and relying on the kindness, so called, of my boss. Really, it's not kindness. My boss is feeding my coworker's addiction to being heard about their physical problem. And and I'm not saying this in judgment of my coworker. I really am not. What I'm saying is that it was something that I noticed, and it's something that I've done many times also. So I really have no cause to judge my coworker because so many times I've gone off on a tangent, on a ramble about something that I'm dealing with in my personal life. And a lot of times it's really interesting. I can like feel the moment when people have checked out, when they've gone away, and they're no longer listening to me. Sometimes I can mark that very moment, and a lot of times I'll just keep on going because I've already started. Why not? Why not keep on going? And some people find it humorous, and some people, you know, tolerate it for a little bit. But I kind of know, I can already tell that people don't like it, and it's what made what AJ said so fascinating about socializing. You know, like you're almost like captive to your employer because you're it could be your boss doing this to you. It could be your boss offering things about their personal life that you didn't ask for, but you may nonetheless feel like you need to feed their addiction to being heard about some issue in order to keep a copacetic workplace. You know, or it could be you. You're the one offering things that someone really didn't ask for, or you might notice that they're less tolerant of hearing what you have to say, and it's kind of getting boring and annoying to them, and you'll keep on rambling on anyway. You know, why not be a little bit more sensitive and notice that someone is not really wanting to hear what you have to say? You know, that would be the kind thing to do. At least that's what I feel at this point in my life, and I do that less and less now. I still do it sometimes, but like I've been where my coworker was yesterday so many times, where I've been rambling about my nerve problem or some such issue or something I'm mad. A lot of times it's like stuff, moral issues or stuff I'm mad at God about or any old thing. And a lot of times people will engage me in those things, but they'll offer me advice when I didn't ask for it, you know, and I don't tell them that I'm not interested or something. But it's an addictive thing. It's, you know, if you think because what will happen? What if my coworker starts rambling to my boss about his nerve issue, and then my boss said, you know, what I probably would have said in his shoes. I would have said, you know, I'm not interested. I would say, you know, that's enough now. I'm no longer interested in hearing about your problem, and let's get to work. A lot of people would be very upset by that, and they might even shout and scream and give a lot of throw up a big ruckus and make this big problem just because they're not getting their addiction met. And at that point, I would have to say, you know what, you got to get along. You know, I'm gonna right now. You have to go because I don't want to deal with your crap. And that sounds mean too. A lot of people would say, "Oh, that's mean to do that." And I might not necessarily fire them, but I'd say, you know, you're just too angry right now, and I don't want you working right now. You can go away and you can come back today if you're not so angry. If you worked out some of your things, but if you do come back today and you're angry, then you have to go away again. You know, a lot of people I would say that given if I was confident enough that day, and then someone else might like throw up a big ruckus and they say, "Oh, I'm quitting! I can't believe this job," and they might like rally some of their coworkers to their defense, and then I might feel a lot of wrath from like a whole bunch of people. You know, it is not always easy for the boss in situations. You know, like this is the thing we have to understand. A lot of people think that bosses are always a holes and they're always asking me to do things, you know, that are too far and this and that. And well, if you have a problem with the work you're doing, just quit. Go find work that you like better. I mean, the reason I don't quit my current jobs is that I don't think it'll get better until I resolve things emotionally. I've seen it happen. I don't resolve something, I quit a certain job, and then I go to another job and the same issue arises. So what's the point of me quitting that first job? Why should I quit? I I didn't solve anything. Might as well keep working until I resolve that thing and then quit. But But there again, there is an emotional addiction. That's one reason a lot of people work, is that their bosses or their coworkers or whoever is gonna feed their emotional addictions to be heard or whatever. You know, here's another big emotional addiction I've noticed. I want people to say I did a good job. I want them to say it every day, several times a day. And even if I tell them after they tell me, Theo, you did a good job. Even if I tell them, you don't need to tell me that. You don't need it. Secretly, I want them to tell it to me. Secretly, I want them to give me these accolades. Oh, I want them to shower accolades on me. I want them to say, if they said, if they slipped into like, you know, baby language or pet owner talking to a little pet dog language, and oh dear, you're such a good boy. Oh, you are. Oh, you're just the best boy ever. You're such a good. I might take that. If there was no one else around, and I hadn't, there was no way for me to be embarrassed by somebody else. You know, I might just take that because that's really what I want. I want them to shower gratitude and optimistic compliments on me until the cows come home. If they chose to do it once every 30 minutes in an 8-hour shift, that's 16 times. I probably would feel pretty fucking good in that job. I'd probably feel pretty. I'd probably have a great 8-hour shift. I'd walk out of that shift and I'd be like, man, I really did do a good job today, didn't I, man? Yeah, yeah. Remember that one time they said that one thing about how great I was at that one thing I did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're good, you're good. You know, when you're good, I'd feel so good. I'd walk away. I'd walk to my car. I'd drive home. I'd be like, yeah, well, yeah. That boss was really. I don't know what was up. What they were dealing with. I don't know what was up with them today, but they sure liked my work. It's interesting that they really liked it as much as they did. And I'd daydream my entire ride home. I'd be like, yeah, that one thing they liked what I did. Yeah, remember how they said when I put that pizza in the oven and it came out and it looked really good, and they were like, wow, see how that pizza looks great. Yeah, it did look good because I put that extra little bit in it and I made sure it looked good, and yeah, yeah. I mean, it was good. I mean, they weren't wrong. I did do a good job there. Every other time, pretty much. There was that one time that I did something, and I felt they were going a little too far. Like maybe they were being fake about it, but I don't know. I don't need to, you know, think about that kind of thing. I'll just assume that they just loved everything I was doing because they just really think I'm a great guy. Yeah, well, I guess I am a great guy. When when I think about it, I guess I am a great guy. Well, when you're good, you're good. I do that. The entire ride home. I might think about it for that week. For the rest of the month, for the rest of the year, how great a job I did that one day. Because I fucking love to be given compliments. I love it. I need it. I want it so bad. And what I find is that like it's never enough, and that's another good indication of when something is an addiction, because it's one isn't enough. You need to have it over and over and over and over and over again. And I need that hit, that jolt of complimentinine, whatever you want to call it, the complimentahol, the extra sugar rush of complimenticide. So there again, there's another addiction. I've already named what 3 or 4 addictions. Wanting to stay busy, you know, wanting to avoid society's judgment about someone not work about myself not working. Uh, Wanting to get my addiction met of being heard. What was the one I just talked about? Oh, just compliments. Just compliments. There's 4 addictions right there. Big ass addictions. I'm sure there's a lot inside of each one of those addictions. Um, those are huge addictions related to work. And a lot of the reason why people want to work. Right? So, there you go. I asked the question and I got an answer. AJ said a lot of your work is addictive. And especially if it's like work for pay, right there, that's an addiction right there. And then I asked the question, fuck how the fuck is that the truth? Explain that one, God. How the fuck is work an addiction? What am I gonna do without a fucking job? And I got an answer. I got several answers. I see all the time how it's an addiction. I can stay home and try to feel my feelings of unworthiness, but I don't want to do that. I could quit and have a boss say, Theo, you know you're a real piece of shit. You know, we didn't even want you here anyway in the first place. I can't believe you stayed. You know, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out, you fucking piece of shit. Why don't you, I don't ever want to see you. Don't even call me. We know what your address is. We'll send you your W-2s. Don't fucking call me. Get the fuck off my property. If someone said that to me, I'd feel fucking terrible. I'd think about that for a long time. I'd feel really bad about that. I'd be like, yeah, I really did. God, they didn't like me for a long time. Actually, they never told me. They should have told me. I'd go in mental circles over and over again. Like, God, I really am a piece of shit, aren't I? Fuck. God, I really can't believe. Yeah, I did do a lot of bad things there, didn't I? I mean, I was lazy here. I kind of cut corners over there. I was kind of, and I probably avoid the fact that they're just being condescending the whole time. And I want to avoid that whole scenario of somebody condescending to me, so I'll just work, so I don't have to feel any of that, right? So I asked the question, how the hell is work addictive? It sure fucking is, man. It sure is addictive. and and like I said, I'm still not gonna go out there and fucking cut Siberian elms. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll wake up next week and I'll be like, fuck this. Even if I fucking die, I'm gonna fucking cut Siberian elms until I fucking die. Until I make money or die. Maybe I'll wake up. I don't see that happening, but I'm not saying I'm this guru somewhere believing that God is gonna wants to help me, because I know I don't believe that, because there's all these opportunities where I could go off on my own and do work by donation, and I don't do it. So I'm not a sage on a hill. I'm not a guru in a cave telling you, the truth that I found. I've just found this one truth that, oh yeah, it's definitely addictive a lot of the time. Work is definitely addictive a lot of the time, especially if it's for money. Does that mean I want to change? I don't think so. I think I'm squarely. I see the problem, but I don't want to change it, and that's how it is for a lot of things. But that's just how it is right now. That's my own choice, I suppose. So that's all I really wanted to say, and I hope that was helpful somehow.